for joining us. We've got a great session coming out now. We're going to be talking about curb appeal, and that is how to give your home appeal from the curb. It's a bit of an Americanism, isn't it, really? It should be sort of from the pavement, I guess, but anyway. Doesn't matter, curb appeal. So ladies and gentlemen, please, can you put your hands together and a big round of applause for our expert panel. Thank you. Peter, yep. Karen.
Good morning,
Sam,
good afternoon.
Deirdre and Joe.
Hi, Kudley.
Hi guys, how are we? We're good?
Good, thank you.
Just for the benefit of the audience, I guess we should do some introduction. Let's start from this side.
Hi, I'm Joe from Warehome. We're a small architectural practice working on sort of low energy, sustainable homes.
Hi everybody, my name is Deirdre McGettrick. I'm the founder of youfurnish.com. It's an online furniture search platform that brings 110 furniture retailers, John Lewis, Wayfair, Made, Habitat, all into one place to make search easy. You can think about it like Rightmove, but for furniture. We are over there in stand B12B, so do come by and say hi. We're doing a fantastic competition to win over £4,000 worth of furniture today as well.
That's intimidating. My name's Sam. I'm a furniture designer, interior designer, and a bit of a maker as well. And I'm here with HiiGuru. It's the idea being a £30 online consultation for an interior designer without having to do the whole interior design process.
Thank you. Karen?
I'm Karen Stylianides, the editor of Grand Designs magazine, which you'll find on sale at the show. We have a brilliant subscriptions offer, so do take advantage of it.
And I'm Peter, I'm one of the directors at Money Watch Finance. So we're an independent firm specialising in mortgage and insurance advice.
Okay, so look, we're going to be talking about curb appeal and how to get the best value from your home in terms of selling it. So is there anyone here who is selling a home or has recently sold a home? No movement. There you go, a couple there. Well, look, one of the things, I guess, it's what does that mean? What's curb appeal mean, do you think? I'll start with Karen, I guess.
I guess it's really that impression that you give people, who might be interested in buying your home. It's that first sense of, really impressing somebody so that they're interested, if you're thinking of selling, to buy your home. It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, really, on that note, a first impression is probably, because I think, with most things, you get just a few minutes to make the right impression. So I would say thinking about the front of your house, your front garden, etc., is really important.
Yeah, and it's a place sometimes that people neglect, isn't it, when they're trying to sell their home?
Yeah, I agree. I think I would say curb appeal also is it's less about things like square meterage or square footage, number of bedrooms and the size of the garden, and even location. It's that kind of feeling of a nice environment that someone can imagine their home being, the house being their home, rather than those kind of what people think of what you want of, the size, the location, the value of the properties on paper. It's more about that kind of imagining that you're going to be there when you're looking around, I think.
So they say it's 60 seconds. That's how long it takes somebody to decide whether they're going to buy the property or not. So to Karen's point, it's the outdoors, it's the first impression, and there is a lot of little different things that you can do to try and make your home stand out and make sure that you're not turning somebody off by something that's a very quick fix in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting you said quick fix, because I think as well people might think, I should change the bathroom or I should get a new kitchen, to get the most value out of selling my home. And I always think that's like the worst thing you could probably do, because those things are quite subjective, aren't they? So who knows whether someone's going to like them?
They are, but I suppose it depends. There's two ways to think about it. It's making your home sellable so that you're going to clinch a sale, or adding value to your home. And I think the two are different. If you want to add value to your home, maybe installing a really good quality kitchen could be a good idea. It might be worthwhile. And I think you can only tell that by the area that you live in and the ceiling price of similar properties in your area. And if you've got room for that improvement to be made, it might be worth doing a really good quality kitchen.
No, I think you're right. And I guess it depends on the quality of the kitchen that's there. But I mean, the first two things that I always say to people is clean your home, and get some really good sort of professional cleaners in. Clean your home and declutter it, and get rid of all the nonsense that's on the. And I say that like my house is the worst. I can't talk because my house is full of just stuff that I collect. But those two things on their own, I think, can make a big difference. And then after that, look at like painting. Simple things that you can do yourself will make a big difference. But we do have some slides actually, and this is Peach. I think you gave us these slides. It's like finish all jobs.
Yeah, I don't know whether I gave the slides, but I certainly gave the idea.
You gave the idea. Finish all jobs. I like that.
Yeah, that's we're looking there really. If you've got loose tiles or if you've got pointing up that needs to be done or there's maintenance jobs, don't leave them, because I look at it from the other perspective. If you've done all the hard work and you've employed an estate agent to sell the property for you, the last thing you want is that sale falling down because the surveyor comes round and downvalues the property because of jobs that are outstanding.
And would a surveyor downvalue a property because of maintenance issues?
Could do. Yeah, could do. Yeah, because if those maintenance jobs are quite essential, then yeah, theoretically it could. And then the problem you've got is the lender is only going to lend based on the valuation. So you may have agreed a purchase price. That's irrelevant if it's downvalued. And if your buyer is looking to buy with a relatively small deposit, so the loan to value is sort of 90% plus, that's more problematic for them to continue the sale, unlike somebody who maybe has got a 25, 30 or 35% deposit and can maybe absorb that down valuation.
Okay, so get the house finished, get it all, all set up.
But if you had a survey and it revealed something that needed to be fixed, you could fix it at that point, I guess.
Yeah, that happens quite regularly for our clients. Property will be downvalued for a particular reason, and there'll be one of two options that we'll do then. We'll either go back to the estate agent and say we need to renegotiate on the price of the property because this has happened, or we put it back in the court of the seller, and they decide to do the job and rectify the problem, and then it's revalued and back to normal.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess this slide's about dressing, about making it look right. So once you've cleaned, I guess, and you've decluttered, it's then about not making it seem sterile. It's important to, in fact, tell the story of the house in each individual room in some way, isn't it?
From my experience, it was often, if you ever look at magazines and really look at stuff on tables and stuff, like there's always a bowl of lemons for some reason in every. Don't know why everyone has so many lemons kicking around, but that kind of stuff does actually work weirdly. When you think declutter, which is a really, really, really good point, crazy declutter, like put pretentious things on shelves that no one has on shelves for any reason, because you look and go, oh, that's kind of fun. I could be that trendy person, but none of us are. But it's a really good. So look at like other magazines, look at websites, look at Pinterest, look at Grand Designs magazine as well, because that's why we're here.
People also in Scandinavia, they end up putting cinnamon buns in the oven, or
that is a great. That
so
works.
that when people commit, because the thing is there's more than a couple of senses that we have, and if you go and you smell, oh, it's a bit foisty in here or anything like that. Although mold might come up on the survey, at the end of the day you're wanting that first impression to be making them feel at home, and they might not make cinnamon buns, but it's nice to walk into a bakery whether you're going to have one or not.
We all love that, don't we?
Yeah.
And it is just cinnamon buns and put a pot of coffee on.
Pot of coffee, yeah. I mean, they take it even further, end up sort of taking all your furniture out, the estate agents in Sweden certainly, and then they just dress it themselves. So they'll get interior designers in to make your house look as good as it can be, because taste is another thing. You might walk in and see a massive sofa and go, oh, this feels a bit small and tight, and actually a lighter weight, sort of thin-armed sofa or something with legs makes the whole space feel a bit bigger.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just about, regardless of whether you really like that piece of furniture, does it sell that space as well?
I think you really need to think about the space and how you're going to sell it. And, there's some great examples up here of your balcony. We often think about it if you're in London or a city and you're living in an apartment. how can you make the most of every room? Because else nobody's going to look at that balcony and think, oh, there's potential there. So how can you help them to think, wow, that's another room, that's a space I'm going to use, that'll be really valuable to me. So if you do have a second bedroom and you're not overly using it as well, do you want to show that you could have a desk in there, that it could be a home office, it can be multifunctional, all these things that you can do without over-cluttering it. I think that is a big thing, because the more furniture that you've in there, the more clutter that you've in there, people just think, oh, this house is too small. So make the most of every space, leave little clues around to think, oh, I could do this or I could do that, because you can't show everything.
Yeah.
But try and help them to envisage how they could live in the space, because it might be very different how you live in it.
And the other thing I noticed about these photos is the greenery, the use of pot plants to create that sense of, it being a welcoming home and also that sense of well-being. Would you say that was an important part too?
It's incredibly important. I think
especially if you haven't got a garden, maybe.
Yeah, especially if you haven't got a garden. The role of houseplants, and people can be scared of them, but when we're dressing houses to sell, there's a company called Patch Plants that I use, and they're really good because they, you can get really pretty stands and pots. They tell you how to look after them. It all turns up in a box. It's just really easy, and it's a great way to do it. And then we mix that with something that I hadn't thought of before until relatively recently: dried flowers.
Yeah.
Yes, I've got some dried lavender on my stand that I had months ago, and it's dried and it's still the most perfect colour of purple. I'm so excited about it, but if you touch it, it all crumbles.
Yeah, don't touch them.
Yeah, don't touch it. Don't even look at it, in fact. No, just kidding. I have a 100% track record of killing every plant. I don't know what I do, but you can also get fake plants, which I hate saying, but I can't keep them alive. I either overwater them or not, but fake plants create a great
You don't even need to water them. Air plants, you can hang them, you can put them in different places. They just take the moisture out of the air.
Oh.
What's that, Joe?
They're called air plants.
Air plants?
Yeah, so they take the moisture and the humidity. So they work really well in wet rooms or near bathrooms. Kitchens, things like that. But they can be, some of them are just they look like hanging pots, plants.
So I've heard unkillable plants.
I feel like that's for you, maybe?
I'm going to give it a go.
We can't get a Deirdre-proof plant, unfortunately. But no, that's a great idea, though. I've not heard of those.
There we go.
That's fantastic. And having plants in the home, lots of benefits in terms of relaxing you, your well-being, cleaning the air. But actually, again, telling that story of a nice, habitable, welcoming space to be in. But Karen, there'll be some people here who are thinking this is all great, but I don't know anything about interior design. There are lots of ways to get inspiration at the moment, aren't there?
Absolutely. Well, magazines, obviously, number one, but then there's, online, Pinterest, Instagram. Really, there's more inspiration around now than ever before. And you can literally, use an image that you see, or you could even go to the point of gathering a little mood board together and a bit like this, and then following, exactly what you see. And translating that into your spaces. You don't have to get an interior team in to do it, but if it's worth it, to make your house really sellable, it might be worth getting some professional advice on staging as well.
So you can do that from interior designers or online, yeah?
Yeah, particularly also the kind of level of stuff actually with HiiGuru, quite quick, simple staging is very much available. It will be a day, whether it's buying your own stuff or some people just borrow it. Often even you can go to second-hand shops and thrift stores because it's not something that has to be useful, just has to be looked nice and fun. That's often a really good way of doing it as well. Also a good idea is to go around friends' houses, or if you go to some properties have open days where they just have one day where everyone can kind of look if they're interested in buying somewhere or renting somewhere, and just go and steal ideas if they've got a really well-dressed place. It's actually quite a good one too.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And Peter, it might sound like this is all about, vanity and, wanting my house to look great, but it can make a big difference, can't it, if you're trying to sell your house? Because if you've got 2 or 3 people really interested, that could in itself drive up the price.
Yeah, and that is happening at the moment. We're in a situation where the supply and demand is not level. There's not enough properties on the market to supply that demand. So it's not unusual to have 3 or 4 or 5 offers coming in on a property, and that's your ideal situation then, because the more offers that you've got coming in on your home, the more chance you're going to either not just achieve the asking price, but we're seeing properties where they're going well over the asking price. We did one recently where the property was on the market at 425,000. The clients got their offer accepted at 465,000. There was 7 offers on the property.
Wow.
And was there anything in particular about the property that made it stand out, or is it the market situation?
It was a nice property. It was a 3-bedroom Georgian terraced house in Bourneville, right by the chocolate factory, idyllic location. School catchment areas where everybody wants to get their children into. And you'd got families that were competing to get that house, because it wasn't just the house, it was the school catchment area. That's what they were looking at, and that's why the property went well over the asking price. And that's happening quite regularly at the moment.
So it can make a big difference. So it's not just about, making your house look nice. This commercially, it can make a huge difference. Interesting. I think there's some dried flowers in this photo. Is this for you, Deirdre, this photo?
Yeah, it's just all about the finishing touches, and scent was mentioned, so the cinnamon buns, but flowers can have a big impact. It's so easy to go and buy a bunch of lilies, and as they bloom, they just smell so nice, because we don't realise, but we've all probably walked into somebody's house and you sort of go, oh, it smells a bit damp or dusky or whatever it is. So especially if you've got pets or things like that, use some help. And Jo Malone as well, it's quite a nice brand, isn't it? We all aspire to it. We'd love to get a Jo Malone candle from somebody. So having that in your house and having that brand a little bit on show can often help, because it's like that high end. You're given the aspiration of, oh, they've got Jo Malone in here. These must be good people. I'd like to buy this house. We're so easily influenced. I am too. It's ridiculous. But these are little things that you can do. And then these are some Jonathan Adler. There's a candle here. It smells amazing. It's over on our stand. You can give it a go later on. And the vases. So you might have seen the ones with the derriere. It seems to be all over everybody's Instagram, really trending. But again, can you include one item like that just seems to be really fashionable? And again, people then I think about, oh, it's really fashionable in here. I could live in here. This would be perfect for me. I can see myself living this life.
And at the end of the day, you can take those items with you afterwards. They're your artefacts.
Exactly.
So you're not wasting them. So buy something you like. It may be relatively neutral, but take it with you after.
So if you're trying to sell your home, be it a flat or a house, and you've got a limited budget, limited time, are there particular areas of the house you should focus on?
I would say the key one is if you've got any particularly overpowering design, wall colours, painting it white, that freshness in the house can be really, really good. It gives people that blank canvas. Karen mentioned the bathrooms and the kitchen earlier. They can seem like 2 really daunting pieces of work if they're not done. So it depends on who you're selling it to and who you think, if it's a first-time buyer, they probably don't have the money to do the bathroom because they've just spent all of their deposit. Yeah. Versus if it's somebody else, they're likely to be able to do a bathroom project. So I think about who you're selling it to, who's that target market, and therefore what will appeal to them. So the blank canvas, once you've got a room painted in white, it's very easy to think I can put in my bed, I can put in my wardrobe. So I would say painting is probably one of the easiest things that you can do.
Yeah, always amazes me what a lick of paint does to a room. It makes a huge difference.
Absolutely, and especially again, if you want to make a room appear more spacious, choosing the right kind of colour can make a huge difference and give the illusion that it's a bigger room. So colours that recede, like blues and possibly bluey greens as well, will help to make a room seem larger. It helps to make the walls appear to recede. Whereas maybe you're in a space that feels a little cool and clinical, you can do the reverse and use slightly warmer colours to get a bit more of a sense of intimacy.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, if you think about what Deirdre said at the beginning about you've got this 60 seconds, it's almost, you've got to think about that journey. So what does that 60 seconds entail? When does that clock start ticking? Well, it starts kicking at the front door, right? So
the minute they drive up,
yeah.
what does your
yeah.
neighbour's house look like? That's got an impact on your house as well. And then bring them into the biggest room that'll make the biggest impression. Not the biggest room, but the room that's the most impressive. So if it's you've done the garden and there's beautiful glass walls at the back, start in your strongest room, because that's the quickest way that they're going to get the impression. So start with the best.
Yeah. Make sure the front of the house is nice and clean. Get some plant pots from B&Q or wherever. Get that looking nice. Think about the hallway as well. Move all the shoes, scooters, bikes. This is my house because I've got 2 young kids. But if you don't have 2 young kids, whatever it is, just the coats. Make sure they're all kind of nicely put away.
And also, it sounds a bit odd, but try and time it with bin day. Quite often, especially if you are in a built-up area. If someone's come around the day before or on bin day, whether the bin men have come or not, they could be all over the place. So if you can do it and maybe help your neighbours out if that's the case. But if you can try and time the estate agents to coming around a couple of days or the day after bin day, it can make a massive difference, especially in the summer. So
Can you plan the weather as well so it's sunny for the garden?
I can try, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, what Deirdre was saying about what you think the best-selling room in your home is. I mean, for most people, I think it would probably be some kind of kitchen diner leading out into the garden.
Definitely.
So make sure that room is looking its best, and that doesn't necessarily mean going out and spending thousands of pounds, redecorating it or refurnishing it. Just make sure it's the best it can be. And if you've got nice, sliding doors or bifold doors leading out into a lovely garden, have those open when people come in, because that's the story you're telling.
And since the pandemic, we've come to appreciate our gardens a lot more. So when people are looking to buy a property, they're looking for a nice garden. I don't think historically we've sort of paid as much attention to the garden as we have the internal side of the home. But the garden plays as big a part in that sales process and the presentation process, probably more than it has done before.
And the other thing, go ahead. With like opening doors and things like that, the other thing is using like mood and task lighting. So when people are coming around, instead of just sticking the main lights on, which can either sort of really flood it with almost too much light, or having them off and it's a bit dull, is actually, as you say, maybe picking up a few lights or borrowing them from friends, just to sort of sculpt that a little bit so that the journey feels a little bit more interesting rather than just lots of square rooms.
Yeah, fantastic. And Peter touched on it. Gardens are really important now because what's happened over lockdown. If you're lucky enough to have one, it's important to make that look as what I suppose. So getting the garden cleaned up is good.
Put in a very clean barbecue in your garden's a good idea.
I have to buy a new one, I think.
Yeah,
the garden is a funny one as well, though, isn't it? Because if you're lucky enough that you've got a huge garden, that could be off-putting to somebody because you're thinking, how much maintenance is this going to require? Am I going to need to be paying people to come in and looking after it? So again, think about who's going to buy it and how you can make their life easier so that they can see themselves there and think, I'd love to have this garden. It wouldn't be too much work for me.
Yeah. But it's interesting, actually. I'm just thinking, just remembered something. The house that I live in, we bought 12 years ago. And I remember the day we went to see it, and it was a nice sunny day, and it needed a lot of work, but we've done that to it now. But I always remember we walked into the house, and the couple that were showing us around were sat in the garden on a little wooden table in the garden. Nice sunny day with the sun coming down on them in this garden, which wasn't particularly pretty, but it was just a nice garden. And I always remember thinking, that's really one of the reasons I bought that house. I mean, obviously the budget, but the idea that I immediately could see my wife and I sat like they were sat in the garden on a sunny day, and for me that was just one of the real key things that made me think I want to buy this house.
And that's an interesting point there, what you mentioned about it was the owners that really sold it to you, because when you employ an estate agent and they do the viewings and they take your prospective buyers round, they haven't got the emotional attachment to that property. They can't explain to your prospective buyers the history and what you've done and how you've improved that property and the love and the attention that you've given it. So if you can do it, I know not everybody can because of work commitments, but if you can actually show your prospective buyers round, you'll get far more from it because you can put a lot more love and your heart into selling it for yourself.
I mean, that's a really good point. We haven't covered that. Does the panel think it is of benefit, if that's something that people are willing to do and can do and have the time to do, to show potential buyers around the house themselves?
Absolutely. If you've got what's been your happy family home, and you're marketing to families, and you can tell that story about how it's worked really well for you, how there's been enough space, how the layout of the house has worked really well for your family, how all the amenities that you need are close at hand. I mean, that's got to be a brilliant story, hasn't it? And they can imagine themselves then in your shoes.
I think you've got to be careful on the other side. So when I bought an apartment, the lady who lived there was there every time I went around for the viewing with the estate agent, and I felt like I couldn't properly look. I was like, oh, sorry, can I just jump in here? And I felt really awkward the whole time that she's there. So if you're selling it, I think personally I do a much better job than the estate agent. I'd be like, you need to sit on the chaise because that's where you're going to get the river view. You can see yourself there, can't you? Just like you sort of said. But then how do I say maybe leave them alone for a while to have a proper look around, because they might be afraid to even give a comment to say, oh, I don't like the colour of that. Oh, they're going to be offended. Mm-hmm. So how do you still let them feel like they're getting a good grasp without offending you if you are showing it?
I think maybe you got it right. I mean, the answer was in what you said. You just leave them to it. So maybe you go into the garden. I'm pretty sure that's what the guys did when I was with them. I always remember they left us and we walked around the house and, and pointing out the bits we did and didn't like. And then came back down. They were still sat doing work in this beautiful garden, drinking coffee, and we were just like, "Yeah, look, let's buy the house." So I think maybe just let them get on with it for a while.
And it, like you're saying, it's like a personal choice, because some people want to be impressed with the house they're buying, and other people just want to feel at ease. And so you've got to kind of understand, or the estate agent has to understand what that person's actually after. So I think it can be more difficult than just be there, don't be there, or
yeah, absolutely. Understand your market. So, I mean, that's interesting. So perhaps you should ask the estate agent a couple of questions about the vendors before they come round.
Before they come round, yeah.
Are they a young family? What are they like?
Yeah, because if it's like a young family, you can make sure to leave toys out, as an example. Or even if you're just like a single person or a couple, just stick up the pretend lines of how much someone has grown over the years to kind of sell that image or something, or and vice versa.
That is cynical.
It's a joke. But on a more serious note, because if you know it's like an older couple coming, they're not going to want to have kids' toys kicking around, so hide that sort of stuff and just make it more like a bit grown up. And then if there's a family, it's like, oh, have the young stuff, have the play area kicking around, like a play mat on the floor for the baby, that sort of thing. Yeah. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, there's some great examples here of some soft furnishings, which actually are a good way to kind of add something to a room without spending a fortune.
Yeah, so one of the big things is, how do you lay out your coffee table? Can you get a few interior design books and stack them up? We all like the little rugs and throws. They just look really appealing. And especially if you've gone and you've painted the rooms maybe white to sort of create that blank canvas, just throwing in pops of colour here and there through some of the interiors and accessories can just make sure that the space doesn't feel too bland, and that people sort of can get ideas as well around, oh, that's nice, or that might be something that will work. Even the little trinket box that you have, what could you put in that as well? It's just little things. It's pebbles, whatever it might be, marbles, if there's little kids, not too little, but things like that.
Do you think it matters, Deirdre, to follow trends? Do you think it's important to have masses of rattan around if everyone, rattan's the new big thing? Or does that not really apply? It's just a sense of making it feel attractive and homely rather than really on trend.
So I think trends are loved by some and not by others. So it's subjective what we like. We can't stage our homes that'll fit for every person that's going to walk through the door. So that's, I suppose, why you're trying to keep it as bland as possible in one way. So it's the blank canvas and each person can then try and imagine. But, having some things, if they're on trend and very trending, like the derriere vases, it just maybe alludes something to that aspirational part of consumers that are looking and thinking, yes, this is the house for me.
Here's the thing, though, isn't it? We're talking about people doing something to sell their house, but actually, just watching this and looking at this and listening to you all, I'm thinking, well, actually, you should just do this to your house anyway.
Well, it's a great point. Like, we live in our homes, and 10 years later, you're going to sell them, and you finally get around to doing that job. And then you're like, why didn't I do that? And it wasn't that much effort, and I could have enjoyed it all along. Why didn't I make my balcony look that good? And I could have been out there for the last 3 years rather than the 2 days that it was warm enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And maybe then you wouldn't want to sell.
Exactly.
Maybe you wouldn't stay
Isn't
there.
that don't move, improve, isn't it?
Don't move, improve, indeed. Yeah. I mean, but that. You know, I'm joking a bit, but actually it's an important point, isn't it? That some of the lessons, things we're talking about here, are things that, you know, people could enact in their homes almost immediately. You know, I was going to say this weekend, but it's Sunday, obviously. But, you know, next weekend, during the week, and improve their home on a kind of piece-by-piece basis, and just think that would make it much nicer to live in, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because even when you're selling a home, not just a house.
Yeah.
So why not make it personal for you and for other people? And hide all your junk and paint your walls, basically, is what to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do that when I get back.
I think certainly nowadays a home office seems to have a lot of weight. So even if yours is a 2-bed or 3-bed, actually showing that there's a place where someone can put a desk and work from home, maybe with a laptop open, or, you know, whatever it is, to just give the impression of, oh, actually, one of us or two of us could still work from here 2-3 days a week without feeling cramped, especially if it's like apartment living. You know, I'm sure with yourself, since lockdown, it's trying to renegotiate that space in a way that we haven't had to do before.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
just showing that flexibility is often quite sort of eye-opening for people.
I think that's a really good point, because, you know, I think everybody in their own way has touched on that today, but it is about telling the story of the home and how you're going to live there. And definitely, I mean, working from home is huge now, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, we had a session on this last Saturday,
We did, yeah.
actually, yeah. And there's a lot you can do without spending a lot of money just to create that sense of a home office. You just have to plan the space quite carefully and make sure. You can even buy freestanding pieces of furniture that are like little workstations that you can shut the doors on afterwards and just make a nice piece of furniture, but actually are really functionally useful in that way. And it might be worth investing in something like that.
Yeah. And on that note, we've got the Working From Home project room set competition, which is right on the other side on that far wall, and that's got some great examples of what you can do in relatively small places to make them flexible and to make them something you can do that you can work from home.
Well, Furl there as well, they've got the beds that come down. So if you're using the office as a main room, but you still want to have a space for guests, like, it's a bit gimmicky, isn't it? But how many of us, if we went in and saw a bed coming down, you're like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And everybody would remember that home as well when you're competing against other ones if it's not as buoyant a market. But things like that can make a big, big difference.
No, absolutely. And I think those sort of rooms, you know, where we've had spare rooms where over lockdown we changed them into offices, that we've come out of lockdown and we're realising, well, actually, people, you know, my parents or sister or brother are coming back to stay. So we need that space again. But actually, I'm not going back to the office 5 days a week. So it's that flexible space is really important. Are there any questions? We've got about 5 minutes. So if anybody's got a question about home styling or getting the best out of their home for sale, then please put your hand up and the microphone will find you. Oh, there's a question here. Thank you. Oh, can you just wait for the microphone? Sorry.
Yeah, on decluttering, obviously we probably want to get rid of stuff, but there might be some stuff that we want to hold on to, particularly if we're looking to upsize. What's your advice on where to put that stuff? If we've got a garage, an attic space, or maybe beyond our own property?
I mean, I definitely use like a storage container for the cost of like 7 days. First of all, the garage is, for me, if I'm looking at a place, a garage is quite important. So to fill it with boxes, again, it's the same as with the rest of the house. You're just making that more of a negative space. So if you can get everything out of the garage as well, maybe a couple of like well-placed tools here or there is fine. But if you're dressing that in the same way as the rest of the home, but for the cost of, especially if you can compress all your viewings to within like a relatively short period, just get it out of the place really quickly, and ask the neighbours if you can chuck it in their garage even, if you're friends with them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It depends how much clutter you have. I guess if it's just a few boxes, you might be able to ask a relative if they wouldn't mind holding on to stuff for you for a little while. That doesn't incur any cost. But if you have got quite a lot, the storage facility is probably the best way to do it.
And also with the smaller stuff, when you're decluttering, you have to be. It's really difficult, but you have to be brutal. And you know, when we do it at our home, we have 3 piles, and the one pile is the pile that's staying, the middle pile is the pile that's going, and then there's another pile that go into a box, and that box goes into a cupboard under the stairs. And if nobody goes back to get any of that stuff out within 2 months, then that goes as well. And we never go into that box. So it's kind of, but it's just that way of that mentally getting over the idea that, I'm throwing stuff away. So it's just a little trick that we play on ourselves. But you've got to be brutal and we've got too much stuff, I think.
The key is not to open it after the 2 months to double check. You're like, and that one, I might just take that one.
Well, no, you do, but then no, you have to be brutal. Like,
you got to keep it closed and just it's gone.
It's been 2 months. No one's got any. Whatever's in there, you don't want it.
Yeah, but have you never had that thing where 6 months later you think, oh gosh, where's the thingamajiggy? Where's that gone?
Now I've got to buy 4 light bulbs again.
Yeah.
The general rule of thumb is the week after you throw it away, that's when you need it as well. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That doesn't happen that often, and I thought it would. No, and it would be because you're like, but what about? And then it goes, and you never get it out. So you just get rid of it. But it's just a way of And I have this little stone sort of concrete bull that I got in Spain. And I use it as a bookend, but I love it. And my wife keeps trying to throw it out, and I keep finding it like in piles, and she'll hide it, and I keep finding it, and then I go back into the house and put it in a different. You're
playing hide and seek with a little.
With my little concrete bull, because there are things that you would love, so keep on to them. But like most of it, you can get rid of.
Yeah. You can also do things like sort of Mary Kondo it, sound a bit cliche. Get some really good underbed storage and put it in there, and then you're kind of also selling your house with the underbed storage as a kind of concept, and using the space to save as well. So a bit of best of both there.
I recently got introduced into the vacuum packs, so you can put your clothes in or extra duvets and put the Hoover on. It just sucks up all the air, so it really condenses it down. So it's really handy to store things then away in under bed or in the attic if you're not showing the attic. Can be really helpful.
Good. If there are no questions, then there's one up there,
one at the back,
and there's one here. We've got 2 questions. Wonderful. We've got time. We have probably got time for both if they're quick.
Hiya, you're right.
Hello.
I take it we're all here for inspiration and advice and, sort of good sort of house, home, whatever you want to call it. When you look online and you want to get inspiration, there's so many, there's a multitude of different ideas, programs. Is there a program or place that you can find everything you want in, or more or less everything you want in?
Yeah, the Grand Designs magazine and website, I think.
Right. Apart from that, that's a good idea, good point. But apart from that, is there any other places that you could go to, that... I have a website that I use and I pay for it called Readly, and it's got magazines all around, but there's never any sort of one particular place that I want to find everything in that give me ideas and inspiration.
I think you just have to look around.
Apart from Grand Design, as you said.
No. I was joking. I'm not joking as in it's not good to look at. I'm just saying you should use... I mean, I look at that. I look at House. I find it is really good. Yeah. I look at Pinterest. I look at Instagram.
That's what I'm saying. All those places, they're all there, but they're not in the one place. You have to go from place to place to place to find inspiration, and then you forget where you went.
Mate, I think you're 30% of the way through a really interesting Dragon's Den pitch. So I think you should go away and have a think about that.
I think we all could, actually.
Well, there you go.
But once you're ready to buy it, you could go on to youfurnish.com, which I hear is a great website that lists all the retailers. So if you do then want to buy a white vase, you could just go on and search the white vases across the entire market.
And Karen did touch upon earlier with the Pinterest. I mean, if there's something particularly that you like, it's really good at showing up more of the same sort of stuff. So if you're pinning that, quite often it's linking back to the website where someone else has posted it. So you might find a sofa you really like that is on youfurnish.com, but it's on Pinterest, and then it'll bring up other ones that are similar. So there's a lot of these websites that are sort of the cookies in the background.
What I do, I sometimes share, if I something I like, I put it in a folder, and I keep it there. But sometimes you get distracted and you forget where you've been, whatever. But I think it's about just looking around, isn't it? I suppose, and just
Yeah. There is-
Pinterest is. My wife's on Pinterest all the time and costs me an absolute fortune on that
Yeah.
page.
It is the best for visuals.
Oh, yeah.
For images. If you want, if you're looking at styling ideas, it's really the best place to go to.
Yeah.
And it will feed into what you're looking at and feed you more of it. So, yeah.
I mean, every client project we have, we set up a Pinterest board. We have it room by room, and it's sort of like a really good cataloguing of the journey as well, because you see things get dragged into the dump, like what they liked at the start of the project and what they actually got at the end changed.
Yep.
But then, the things that really lasted, that's what they want to see.
I think we've got one more question over here somewhere. I think we had, and then right at the end, as we end, I'll let you all know now. I'm going to ask you for one top tip to kind of get that curb appeal, so you can get thinking about
Hello. So I assume everybody knows that the buying experience tends to start at Rightmove rather than when you're in the home. Do you have any specific advice about how to get your property kind of like really out there on these online platforms?
So I didn't hear the beginning of that. What did you say?
So kind of the buying process, it tends to start with like Rightmove, Zoopla, On the Market, these online. Do you have any specific advice of how to really make your property stand out online effectively?
You've got to get good photos, I would say, number one. So when you're thinking about staging your house, that's another point I think I should have made earlier, that it's like doing a magazine shoot almost. You've got to look at your rooms as though you were shooting them for a magazine and make sure that all those key areas are beautifully staged so that the photos look fantastic. I think that's my number one tip.
And Karen, is it worth, sorry to cut across, but is it worth paying, because obviously most estate agents give you like a standard set of photos. Do you think it's worth paying for an actual photographer?
It depends on the value of your home and how much you're likely to get for it. If it's a high-end home, I think it's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
And there are websites like Modern House, and they do produce beautiful photographs for their clients. I mean, we use it for inspiration for the magazine as well. So it's that good. But of course, it's costly, so it depends. It depends, how much.
Some of the photographers we've used or we work with, we've seen that actually some of their work does come from people saying, you're a stylist and a photographer, so they'll come in. They might have asked the clients beforehand to take a few photos of their rooms from certain positions just with an iPhone and send it through.
Yeah.
And then they can say, actually, if you want to make this more cost effective, grab a few of these artifacts and whatnot. And then they come down and one day dress it a little bit, take the photos, and off they go. Or they know that they've already got some artifacts to bring with them.
Also, on the point of the estate agent, do your groundwork, do your research, because there are some really good innovative ideas now where some estate agents don't just rely on good photos, but they do the virtual tour.
Yeah,
and that virtual tour is, in a lot of cases, is so much better than just still photographs.
But again, dressing there is really important. So I would, magazines like Grand Designs and other magazines, websites, Modern House, great way to look at how they stage things and look at that and try and get inspiration to stage and dress your house.
And just like the home, you try and bring them into the best room in the house. Start with the strongest picture, because people will judge on that very quickly. And don't go with your opinion on the strongest. Try and take it to 2 or 3 people who are a bit more objective around the home so that you're starting on the best foot. And I do think that you can ask your estate agent, because you've got sponsored products on both Zoopla and Rightmove, where you can be on the first page, they give you bigger pictures, you get the 3 thumbnails down the side. So push your estate agent, are you going to promote my property? Because they'll probably have a certain amount that they promote each week or each month with the 2 property portals. So make sure yours is one that they're pushing. Ask them about that before you give them the sale.
Wonderful. I think we've come to the end we've run out of time almost, except I'm just going to go through quick fire, 1 word or 1 sentence.
Oh, no.
1 sentence. Top tip to get curb appeal for your house. Peter.
Tidy and first impressions.
Okay. Karen.
Going back to my point about, first impressions and your front garden, fix any broken paving slabs.
Yep.
Any small repairs, a dodgy gate, just mend those things.
But I'll say declutter.
You don't have to spend a lot of money. A lick of paint can do wonders, make a big difference.
Deirdre?
A few accessories to make it look nice.
Cinnamon buns.
Sorry?
Cinnamon buns.
Cinnamon buns. Smell.
Do you know what? I love that. Everybody can achieve that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you all for helping as well. Please give it a big round of applause to our expert panel. Thank you very much, guys.